have a hot take for you. If you are someone who is able to access enough food.
So, it's more complex than that. Regardless if you might be technically right, it's more complex. Obesity is caused by a multitude of combination of problems. And privilege is only a small access of that pie. Food culture. Possible biological problems with that person. Now, I'm not asking for full acceptance of obesity because you have video on obesity acceptance. But also, treat us like goddamn human beings while we're trying to lose the weight, okay? So, food culture. Biological process issues. This is where the privilege comes in, or lack thereof, or it's not an economic thing necessarily. I'll get back to that, but it is, but it isn't. It shouldn't be. Our food stamp program's broke. I'll put it that way, or EBT. Societal conditions. And there's many more. So, I've fought weight with my entire life. I have a mishmash of health issues that contributed to that. I have dyspraxia. I have attention deficit. I have autism. I was epileptic. I guess I'm technically still am, but I grew out of that when I was a child. Even when I was skinny, I had a hard time putting muscle mass on. Because of biological processes that they can't really understand fully because medical science hasn't gotten that far. Sorry, I have a timer to beat because I had to be on back on my phones here in a little bit. But added to that, even when I was people already restitched that food costs are way skewed. It is cheaper to buy the bad food than it is to buy the good food. That being said, the good food that we do have access to isn't as nutrient dense as it was 50 to 70 years ago because of subsidies given to corporations instead of small farms. The small farms have been pushed out. Along with bad soil management, along with many different things. I get a whole video on that alone. We live in a hybrid system between capitalism and socialism, and our social programs that are supposed to be benefiting those who do not have access to food do not make sense. They don't. First of all, they're going off on a national income scale, and they're not looking at those who might be considered poor, say in Missouri or Kansas or Oklahoma, versus someone in California, Washington, Oregon. It's completely skewed, and if we still want the federal government to be in charge of that, they could reinvest in the USDA and try to have farm offices trying to evaluate what the hell's going on. There's ways to fix it without trying to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but it's mismanaged, to say the least. I do a whole video on that. Our food culture, the concept of what we're raised to eat versus what we should be eating. And the mandate of the food pyramid back in the day, which was totally skewed towards carbohydrates. The fact that we have a soda culture, when we should have a coffee and tea culture. And then, because of food being my stomach and abusing my body, I've killed my thyroid. I'm on Levoxythyron. So, but you know what? With modern pharmaceuticals, I tend to seem to be losing the weight. I've gotten 180 pounds off. I got another 180 to go. But you know what? It's a multifactorial problem. Anyone who's overweight, you're going to find out there's many issues going on, and not all of them can be fixed. And some of them are issues that are nationwide. I've seen people on food stamps, EBT, that are poor, and they have access to ridiculous amounts of food. Ridiculous amounts. And you can eat healthy on it if you're spending it correctly. I've also seen people on EBT that have barely access to any money for food. And dirt poor also. So, and then we get into financial education. I'm not mad that you're calling it a privilege. I'm just more saying, let's add some context to the conversation, because it's not necessarily just about privilege. So, we can break down to each subject. I'm willing to talk on each factor. We make this a multi-sequence one. I'm not angry. I'm just passionate and loud and just wish I can. It's 10-minute videos. I get it. So break it on. Talk to you later.